Okay everyone, welcome back to the channel for another video on Gran Turismo 7. We're back with another video, and this week we're going to be doing a guide for Daily Race C strategy. So tomorrow I'm going to try and get a track guide up for you. We're going into depth, giving you pointers on braking points. But for today, we're going to give you a guide on what strategy to pick for this race and how to drive it, in my personal opinion, from the very few races I've just done. So yeah, if you do enjoy these videos, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get on with this. So the reason we're doing Daily Race C is because I think this is going to be the main race of the week. Daily Race A is in a go-kart around Kyoto, the really short track. Daily Race B is at Dragon Trail Gardens in Group 4. It's going to be a four-wheel drive fest, and yeah, I'm just not into that. So Daily Race C is pretty good. Group 3, there's strategy in it. You have to pit. You don't have to pit. You could technically do a no-stop and tyre save. But I'm not too sure that's the best strategy for this race because the pit lane loss at Brands Hatch is not that high. So the strategy I'm going to do this time, though, driving the RCZ. The RCZ looks like it's going to be a very strong car here this week. I think it's going to be the go-to car. So strategy-wise, this one, I'm trying out a fuel save strategy without changing tyres because it's 13 laps times 15 tyre wear and times 7 fuel. So you do need to do a bit of fuel saving and also a bit of tyre saving if you want to do this strategy. However, as you're going to see, this strategy is pretty difficult because the RCZ, you don't have a brake bias change available with this car. So to keep the rear tyres alive, you've got to drive it very smooth. Now, this is my first race on this. We jumped on, did time trial, did about 8 laps in time trial. Managed to get a fairly solid lap time in of a 123.3. I am going to try and improve that for a track guide for you lot for tomorrow's video. We're going to try and get that down to the 22s to really try and push the limits. If not, it'll be like a 23.0 or something like that, just to try and give you as much advice on where you can gain time. But for this race, you can see I'm doing a lot of short shifting with this first attempt at strategy. We're short shifting a lot, not over revving the Peugeot, because the Peugeot actually really finds a lot of pace when you rev it out. So short shifting, it slows it down, but it does save a lot of fuel because you're not kicking that turbo in as aggressively. So yeah, you can see at the moment, using the higher gears again, and we have a bit of a moment on that form. Now, this actually loses us quite a big chunk of time because we've got dirty tyres there. And that is going to affect us for a few corners, probably into this right-hand corner. So you can see as we go into the braking zone, not getting the grip that we'd like, running a little bit wide, not getting acceleration and taking it a little bit cautious. So we've given P2, Rory there in P2, a chance to get very close to us. So I think he was on a different strategy in this one. I think he was on a more of an aggressive way of drive, and this pushing a little bit more. And we're on a kind of fuel saving whilst trying to save tyres at the same time to see if we could do it. This is pure experimental for your lot benefit, basically, to see if we can make this strategy work. Now, I do think that someone who's very good on tyre wear, and there might be a car that might be a bit better at this strategy at fuel saving, the Mazda might be worth a shot if you can get used to it with the default setup. Haven't tried the Mazda yet. The Mazda, as we know, is extremely good on fuel, so you probably wouldn't need to do much fuel saving with that car. It'd probably get to the end fairly okay with just gradual shifting, like 40% shifting, something like that. But the RCZ doesn't seem terrible on fuel, so the RCZ is going to be a lot faster over the lap. So if you come up against someone who's pushing with the pit lane loss here, you might, I don't know how it would work out. We'd have to see later on when the faster drivers jump on, and we can compare the RCZ maybe to someone who's fast using the Mazda. It's going to be an interesting one. But for this one, I wanted to use the time trial car because this is the car that a lot of people are going to probably use because it's the fastest over one lap. So yeah, into this right hand corner again, just taking it nice and easy. 4th gear through there. I do advise, try to use higher gear as possible with the RCZ. I said it at Interlagos, this car benefits a lot from using higher gears. It doesn't, especially when you're coming out of exits of corners, reducing the amount of shifts you have to do will really gain you a lot of time. So try and use the higher gear that you can as possible. It will help your lap time, and it will also help reduce tyre wear to the rear tyres because you're shifting left. So the less amount of shifts you do, the better the rear tyres are going to be. And especially with no brake bias available in this race because it's a default setup race with BOP on, you're going to be having to look after them rear tyres. So you can see at this stage, we're coming up to lap 7, and I really, at this point, with the strategy I'm on, shouldn't have pitted. I should have ran right to the end and ran the car light on fuel, but I just pitted. I didn't really think this through. So we pitted here, and we're going to go into the pits. We're going to refuel, but we're not going to change tyres. So this might lose me a second overall, 2.5 seconds by doing this strategy because we're now putting more fuel into a car with no new tyres. You can see we've come out the pits with no new tyres there. One thing to be careful of, pit exit, be very cautious on that pit exit. You don't run over the white line. It's very easy to do with the way the auto drive takes you out the pit. So just be careful that you're making sure you're keeping that car to the right hand side and not getting a 3-second penalty, because that will be very costly at this daily race. So you can see through here now, we're around 7 seconds behind Rory and P1. However, he's going to have to pit and he's probably going to change tyres. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out. We've not driven particularly well on this first go. I do think there is a lot of optimization we could have made out of this strategy. Probably 3 to 4 seconds. We made a mistake and we also made a few errors on the lap anyway that lost us probably over 2 seconds. So with optimizations, we probably can go 4 or 5 seconds quicker. However, I'm still not convinced that this strategy is going to be the way. We're going to run the aggressive approach after we've done this race to show you which strategy works out better in terms of overall finishing time. Because we're starting P1, we can really get a good idea of this in terms of, you know, what strategy is working. So coming up to lap 13, coming to the end of the race, you can see we've got a 5-second lead, but you can have a little look. If we look at our lap times on the right hand side here, you can see how they have massively faded. At the start, we were able to get nearly into the 24s with fuel saving, and now they have dropped off massively. This lap is looking like a pretty slow lap, so you can have a little look on the right hand side. We're approaching now nearly 2 seconds a lap slower. Now, tyre change is only 4 seconds, I think it is, so within 2 laps you've got that back. So I do think it's advisable, especially for the average driver that's probably not going to be as good on tyre wear. It's probably going to be a better idea that you change your tyres. I really recommend get in the pits, change your tyres, refuel up, drive away. In terms of the full no-stop strategy, again, this is going to have to be tested out with the Mazda. I still think the RCZ is going to be the way to go. So we go over the line, we get a P1. Luckily, we didn't really have the most competitive lobby in, and we still take the win. We've got a 3.7 second lead over Rory there. And not a very good finishing time, if I'm honest, 18:49. I knew that that wasn't the way to go. As soon as I finished the race, I knew that that one wasn't the way to drive it. So this time we're going to go aggressive again. At the start, make sure you use mixture 6 on the rolling start just to save a bit more fuel. You can see that the fuel there is saving up more. You can see it by saying 51 laps. So yeah, make sure you use that mixture 6 for the rolling start until you get into the start of the race, then into mixture 1, and then away we go. So straight away, what we're going to do this time is we're going to go for a tyre change. Now, we're not going to drive time trial laps every single lap. What we're going to do here is we're going to drive close to the limit, like the red line at the end of the bar, and then shift just before it, because again, that's going to save a little bit of fuel. Because if you over rev this car, you're going to burn fuel for minimal gains. Time trial, by all means, give this car every little bit rev you can. It will gain you time. However, when it comes to race pace, you're not really worth burning that much fuel for a 1/10 of a second a lap. Sometimes that's just going to cost you more in terms of time in the pit lane. So sometimes you can see here we're now shifted a little bit earlier. We're not going to go revving it all there. So we changed at 126 miles an hour. This car will do 134 in 4th gear. So you can see how much short shifting I'm doing there, just to give you an idea. And yeah, on the outlap, we're taking it nice and easy. We don't want to make a mistake on this outlap. So again, I think just on this outlap alone, we're probably losing a little bit of time. And yeah, again, this strategy could be optimized quite a bit. So it's going to be interesting at the difference from this strategy compared to the strategy we just did, where we didn't change tyres and we went really aggressive with, you know, short shifting and stuff like that. So again, we're going to skip now to lap 2, the end of lap 2. Now, lap 2 was a really poor lap, I have to say. So this lap that we're on now could have been a second quicker. So there's probably 2 seconds that we're down on an optimal run already. But we're going to start this lap because lap 3 and lap 4 are quite good laps. So we're going to go through this with you. Now, like I say, I am going to get you a full in-depth track guide out for time trial, and it will be very helpful for the race, I can tell you that now, because the braking distance are not that much different, because although you've got heavier fuel, you're not going into the corners as fast, so it kind of counters it. So the braking points are pretty much identical. But you can see we're on a pretty good lap this time. We're starting to pull away now from Rory there in P2. You can see that the gap is increasing. We're now at 1.7 seconds. And you can see this time through here, we get a much better entry into the corner. Staying in 3rd gear through there, my tip for that corner. If you get it right, now sometimes you can get it wrong and run a little bit wide, but I think it's best to practice the best way of doing it. I think the best way is staying in 3rd gear and then into this corner, staying in 4th gear. You can see, be careful on your downshifts. I've said this with this car so many times, and I will say it in the track guide that I do tomorrow. If you're too aggressive with downshifting with this car, the rear will step out. If you're gentle with this car and shift very late and be smooth, the car will be very stable. So bear that in mind when you're driving this RCZ. The smoother you are with downshifting, the smoother the car will react. And also that's going to help your tyre wear. So you can see this lap, much better. We've increased quite a big gap on this lead. We actually gained over a second on this one lap alone pretty much, and you can see what I'm talking about with regards to lap 1 and lap 2. This lap looked a lot better, and we're going to go over the line for, I think it's a 1 minute 24.5. So yeah, pretty solid lap in there. 24.5. It's not the best lap we could do. I think we can get in race pace 24 1s to 2s. By the end of the week, I'm not too sure. It'd be interesting to see how much time we find at this combo, because like Interlagos, we found a lot of pace as we drove it more and more. Same with Daytona. It's going to be very interesting how fast we can actually get our pace to, because we're probably going to do quite a lot of this race, because it's a race with strategy. It's an enjoyable combination. It's Group 3. It's at Brands Hatch. I would have liked a Group 2 race this week, but overall, this is the best race of the week. I think this is the one where most drivers are going to be. It's going to be the most competitive race. I think this is where a lot of the top split drivers are going to be on, so it should be a good one. You can see again this lap we are a little bit ahead. We can see Sector 1 we were nearly a tenth ahead. Lost a little bit on Sector 2, and then through here just trying to keep it nice and smooth. Again, you can see with our shifting, we're not going to go down into third gear for that corner. We're going to stay in fourth. Keep it nice and settled the car, because downshifting unsettles the car a lot. And again through this corner you can see just nice and smooth through the corner. And again as we approach the corner, brake in, downshift to third, on the throttle nice and early, use the full track width, and we're actually going through another purple lap here. So again, shows you how slow lap 2 was actually, that we've done 2 laps in a row that are both consistently faster. So over the line now, let's see what we're going to get as we go down the main straight. And I think we actually go a tiny bit faster at 0.4. Let's have a little look. Yeah, we just managed a 0.4, nearly a tenth faster actually there. So there is still more potential in that lap. Now we're going to skip ahead to the pit stop phase. So this time I did the longest stint on the first stint. Probably the best way to do it would be pitting lap 6 and then doing 7 laps on the lower fuel. Now one thing I will say about the RCZ, which kind of is another reason why I think you're better doing the strategy of changing tyres, is this car, as it goes lighter, becomes a little bit trickier to drive, and it's something we're going to have to get used to as we go through the week. It becomes a little bit more tail happy. So with the full fuel, it's extremely planted, but when you put that fuel, take the fuel out by doing laps and with tyre wear, it does become a little bit more sketchy. It wants to snap a little bit more, so just be cautious with that. So we're going to skip ahead now. You can see that we've managed to do our pit stop. Rory again in P1 there, hasn't pitted yet. He's going to probably lose a bit of time. By the time he goes in the pit stop, we should be comfortably in the lead. Let's take a look now. As we go through the first section, you see we're gaining on him with the fresh tyres. And yeah, the car still though, I think I preferred it on the first 3 or 4 laps compared to how it's driving with this now with the lighter fuel. And that is because the car doesn't feel as stable. It's probably with the weight transfer, with the amount of fuel in. Obviously the balance of the car is changing, so you're going to have to factor that in throughout the race. You know, decide on what you like. If you want the car to be sketchy and like that, then maybe going with the no tyre change might be your way. But honestly, I think the majority of people are going to be faster doing this race by changing tyres and refueling up and just driving sensibly. Don't over rev this thing, just drive it pretty smooth, and you should have quite good pace doing that. So over line now, we're going to go over line. I think it's a 24, is it? It's not particularly a great lap. I didn't really push too much because I knew at this stage that we had quite a comfortable lead, because you can see Rory in P2 isn't out the pits yet, and we're going into turn 1 and he's just come out the pits there. So we've got over 10 seconds to P2. So all we've got to do now is drive it smooth, get it to the finish, and compare the overall finishing time. So we do that coming up to the end of the final lap, and you can see we're actually close to lapping a guy in front of us that hasn't pitted yet. I'm not sure if we actually did lap some people that obviously further back, I'm not too sure. So not the most competitive lobby, but it was mainly A and A plus drivers in. I just think some people are having trouble with Group 3 cars, because if I'm brutally honest, I still think Group 3 cars should have more grip than what they currently have on GT7. They are very loose. I think there's going to probably be some changes to some physics in some areas, but I do enjoy driving them still. I do think they take quite a bit of patience. So over the line, and you can instantly see, even with mistakes and not particularly the best run, 1841 compared to 1849 that we did before. So personally, tyre change, I think it's a better strategy than the no tyre change. In terms of doing a no stop, it's going to be interesting. I don't think it's going to work, purely because the pit lane loss is so small here, and you're going to have to save fuel, and your tyres are going to be completely dead. And the pace of the RCZ is actually really good. So I think personally, this is the way to do it. But we'll see as the week develops. I might be wrong. But anyway, if you do enjoy these videos, hit the like.